My brother's unexpected reunion reshaped our family forever. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. My brother walked into the funeral like he owned the truth. That sounds dramatic, but that's exactly how it felt. Like the air had been rented out, like the room had been waiting for him and nobody told me. I was standing by the guest book at St. Brigid's, smoothing the corner of a program for the 10th time, trying not to look at Mom's casket because every glance made my throat do that ugly swallow cry thing. I'm Mia, 29, the one who stayed. The reliable one. The calm Mia, she'll handle it daughter. The sibling who kept holidays from collapsing after Caleb disappeared 8 years ago and left a crater where a family should be. I pay bills on time, I know which drawer the extra napkins are in, and I know how to smile at church ladies while my insides scream. Mark was already in his public face suit. Navy, crisp, the tie Mom bought him after he made deacon. He kept one palm on my shoulder like an anchor and a leash at the same time. You're doing great, he murmured, loud enough for people to hear. She would be proud. I didn't answer because I was busy counting the things that could still go wrong. The catered trays arriving late, the pastor mixing up names, my voice cracking during the eulogy. Then the doors opened. Caleb wasn't gaunt or frantic the way I'd pictured him in my private nightmares. He looked built, settled, a little gray at his temples, beard trimmed like a man who knew mirrors. He held a plain black folder under one arm like it was nothing. Mark's hand tightened. No, he breathed, and I felt it in my bones before I heard it. Caleb scanned the room, found me, and didn't smile. He nodded once, small and controlled, like we were meeting for coffee instead of burying our mother. I could hear the whisper ripple, people recognizing the scandal they'd filed away. Someone behind me hissed, "Is that him?" My knees went soft. Relief hit first, hot and stupid, and then fury climbed over it like a wave. "What are you doing here?" I said, and my voice came out too steady. Caleb stopped a few feet away. "I'm here to make sure she doesn't get buried with a lie." Then Caleb slid the folder toward me, and Mark stepped between us. Before Caleb became a person you weren't supposed to mention, he was the loudest thing in our house. He taught me how to ride a bike by jogging beside me on Maple Street, one hand on my seat, yelling, "Don't look down, Mia, look where you want to go." When Mom married Mark, Caleb was the one who tried the hardest to make it normal. He called Mark sir at dinner, asked him about work, laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny. Mark liked him, at least in public. That boy's got grit, he'd tell people at church, clapping Caleb's back a little too hard. At home, Mark's approval came with conditions. Chores down to the minute. Grades that were expected. Friends that were a reflection. Caleb lived like he was always one mistake away from being reclassified. The night everything cracked is still labeled in my head like a file folder. June 14th, 2017. Hot. Stormy. Mom had worked a double shift and came home exhausted, and Mark was in one of his moods where silence felt like a test you didn't know you were taking. Caleb was 19 and had just been accepted to trade school. He'd saved money from roofing jobs. He was talking about moving out. Not running away, moving out. I remember hearing voices from the kitchen, sharp and low. Then a chair scraping, then something heavy hitting the wall. I froze at the top of the stairs, listening. Mom cried out, "Stop." Caleb said, "Don't touch her." Mark's voice turned calm in that scary way. "You're out of control, son." After that, the official story got polished. Caleb got violent. Caleb shoved Mark. Caleb scared Mom. Caleb stole cash from Mark's desk. Caleb stormed out and cut us off because he was too proud. Mark told it the same way every time, even the pauses. We tried. He'd sigh, eyes wet for the audience. We loved him, but we had to protect your mother. For a while I repeated it too. When people asked, I'd say he had issues. He needed space. I said it like a prayer that would make it true. But there was one detail I never talked about. The dent in the hallway drywall by the thermostat, and the fact that the next morning, Mark replaced the whole panel. I didn't know why that mattered until I saw Caleb again. I finally remembered what was missing from Mark's perfect version. Caleb didn't wait for permission. He didn't hover in the back like an unwanted guest. He walked straight up the center aisle, past the flower sprays and the murmuring people, his shoes quiet on the carpet like he'd practiced not making noise. Mark stepped in front of him, blocking the path to the casket. "This isn't appropriate," Mark said, voice polished for witnesses. "You can pay respects privately, some other time." Caleb's eyes flicked to the closed casket, then back to Mark. I already paid, he said. I'm here for what comes after. I stared at him, trying to reconcile the boy who used to toss me keys and say, drive. Mia, you're ready. With this man who looked like he'd learned how to carry pain without dropping it. My hands were shaking, so I faked busy, straightening the memorial photos on the display table. One of them was from my high school graduation. Me in a cap, Caleb behind me making bunny ears, Mom laughing. Mark had chosen the photos. Caleb's face was in exactly two of them, like an afterthought. Aunt Denise appeared at my elbow, her lipstick still perfect despite the tears. Honey, she whispered, eyes on Caleb. I thought he was gone. So did we, I muttered. My mouth felt full of sand. Caleb moved to me anyway. Mark tracked him like a security camera. People were pretending not to stare, while staring so hard I could feel it. Hi, Mia, Caleb said softly. 8 years collapsed into one word. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to slap him. I did neither. You don't get to show up now, I hissed. You don't get to make this about you. His jaw tightened. I'm not the one who made it about me, he said. Mark's smile sharpened. Caleb, we can talk outside, he offered, as if doing Caleb a favor. Caleb ignored him and lowered the black folder onto the guest book table. A strip of white paper was taped to the front. My name, handwritten in block letters. You brought paperwork to Mom's funeral? I snapped, louder than I meant to. A few heads turned. Caleb met my eyes. I brought proof, he said, because he counted on you never asking. Mark's hand shot out for the folder, fast. I grabbed it first. Inside, the first page had Mom's signature, and I knew it was wrong. My fingers traced the ink like that would tell me the truth. It was a beneficiary change authorization for Mom's life insurance, dated March 3rd, 2025. It listed Mark as sole beneficiary. Under previous beneficiaries, my name was typed in with Caleb's. Under new, it was just Mark. The signature looked like Mom's, except it didn't. Mom looped her M like a ribbon. This M was rigid. And March 3rd was the same week Mom was hospitalized for her migraine episode. The one Mark said she didn't want anyone to know about. Mark's voice snapped. Mia, give me that. His hand hovered, palm down, like he could press the whole situation flat. Caleb said, calm as a held breath, don't. Someone behind me muttered. He always was unstable. Mark turned to the room with practiced sorrow. Today is about honoring my wife, he said. My stepson is emotional. We'll handle this privately. Caleb didn't look at the room. He looked at me. You remember the hallway, he said. You remember the dent. My stomach went cold because I did. The crater near the thermostat. The cracked plastic cover. The morning Mark repainted at 6, cheerful, whistling. I don't know what you think you're proving, I whispered. Maybe Mom changed her mind. She was sick. Caleb leaned closer, so only I could hear. Mia, he said, gentle and brutal. She didn't sign it. She couldn't. What do you mean she couldn't? He flicked his eyes to the casket. Because the day that form is dated, he whispered, she was already legally declared incapacitated. Mark lunged for the folder. Aunt Denise caught his wrist. Mark, she said quietly, not here. Caleb straightened, voice carrying. You didn't just steal from her, he said. You stole her voice. The pastor cleared his throat and started the opening prayer anyway, voice trembling. Around us, people pretended to bow their heads while their eyes stayed open, fixed on my hands. Mark leaned in, lips barely moving, and said the one thing that locked my knees. If you open that folder, Mia, you'll lose your whole family. We made it through the service in pieces. Mark insisted on sitting beside me, his knee pressed to mine like a reminder. Caleb stayed in the back row, still as stone. When I stood to read the eulogy, I could feel Mark's hand hovering at my elbow, ready to steady me. After the burial, the reception room smelled like coffee and disinfectant. People lined up for food and whispered in little knots. Every time I looked up, someone was watching us like it was live television. Mark worked the room, telling anyone who'd listen about forgiveness and wayward children. Caleb didn't bite. He sat near the exit, hands folded, waiting. I tried to act normal. Thank yous, hugs, casseroles I didn't want. But the folder in my purse felt heavy enough to bend my spine. Aunt Denise caught my arm and pulled me into the hallway by the vending machines. The fluorescent light made her lipstick look too bright. Don't let him bully you, she said. Denise, please, I whispered. Not today. Today is exactly the day, she snapped, then softened. Mark has been steering this family by the throat since the minute he got that ring. What are you talking about? I asked. You think Caleb just left? She said. A 19-year-old who saved money for school? He didn't vanish on a whim. He stole from Mark. I said automatically, the words tasting old. Denise's jaw tightened. Did you ever see proof? I opened my mouth and realized I never had. Mark said it. Mom cried. Then the story set like concrete. Denise leaned in. After that night in 2017, I came over, she said. Your mom had bruises on her upper arm. Finger-shaped. She told me she fell. But I watched Mark answer every question for her. My lungs tightened. Mom wouldn't. She would protect you, Denise cut in. And she would protect Mark, because that's what he trained her to do. From inside, Mark's booming laugh floated out, warm and practiced. Denise squeezed my hand. If Caleb has documents, she said, read them. And don't read them in that house. I swallowed. Why? Because Denise's answer wasn't a warning. It was a confession. Because Mark keeps copies, she whispered. And he keeps leverage. I didn't go back into the reception right away. I stayed in the hallway until my shaking settled enough to type. I texted Caleb, where are you? 3 dots appeared. Outside. Passenger side. Blue sedan. The parking lot air was sharp with late October cold. Caleb stood by a faded blue car that didn't match him, like he'd borrowed it from someone who didn't care about appearances. He waited, letting me choose the distance. Why now? I demanded. Caleb's gaze flicked to the building. Because Mom's dead, he said. And because Mark moved fast. He opened the folder and handed me a single page in a plastic sleeve. It was stamped in red, Probate Court, Order of Appointment. The case number sat in the corner. The date was February 26, 2025. Under it, petitioner, Mark R. Whitman. Ward, Elaine Whitman. I don't understand, I whispered. He filed for guardianship, Caleb said. The judge granted it. That's why she was incapacitated on March 3rd. But I would have known, I insisted. I'm her daughter. Caleb's mouth twisted. You would have known if you were notified. He showed me a screenshot of certified mail tracking. Delivery, MIAS, Harris, signed by M. Whitman. My hands went numb. That's not my signature. I know, he said. I have more. But not here. Why give this to me? I asked, voice thin. Why not burn him down yourself? Caleb met my eyes. Because he built the lie around you, he said. If you don't call it a lie, nobody believes me. He slid a small brass key into my palm. A cheap tag read, 114. P.O. Box, he said. Downtown. Open it alone. I curled my fingers around the key, feeling its teeth bite my skin. I'm not promising anything, I whispered. I'm not asking for promises, he replied. Just the truth. Through the funeral home's glass doors, I saw Mark's outline turn, searching. I walked toward my car with the key burning in my hand. I wasn't scared of what was in that box. I was scared Mark already knew I had it. The next morning, I called in family emergency to work and drove downtown with the key in my cup holder like contraband. The post office lobby smelled like old heat. Box 114 was on the second wall. My hand shook so hard the key scraped metal before it turned. Inside was a thick manila envelope. On the front, in Caleb's block handwriting, read in order. First, Mark's guardianship petition. Attached, a notice of hearing with my name and address, and an affidavit of service claiming I'd been personally served on February 12, 2025. The signature line read Mia S. Harris. It wasn't mine. Next, a doctor's letter on letterhead stating Mom lacked capacity to manage her affairs, signed by Dr. Klein, the neurologist from Mom's hospital bracelet. A full incapacity ruling? A guardianship? Without me? I drove to the county courthouse and gave the clerk the case number. She asked, your family? Like it was a warning. I paid $18.50 for copies and got a receipt that made it feel real. The file said Mark listed me as estranged and location unknown. My address hadn't changed since college. Then I noticed the notary stamp on the service affidavit. Whitman Real Estate, Mark's office. My stomach dropped. From there, I went to the hospital where Mom had been treated that week. Records told me it could take days. I begged anyway. In a hallway, a nurse slid me a printout she shouldn't have. Under family present, it said, husband declined daughter notification per patient request. I almost believed it, until the next line. Patient nonverbal, husband answering all questions. I sat in my car and stared until the words blurred into static. On the drive back, I passed Whitman Real Estate. The lights were on even though it was Saturday. Mark's car sat out front, perfectly centered, like he'd been waiting for me to notice. My hands went slick on the steering wheel. Then my phone buzzed with a new text from an unknown number. "Stop digging, Mia. It won't end the way you think." That night, I spread the courthouse copies across my kitchen table like I was studying for an exam I didn't choose. Every page was a small lie leaning on another lie. Mark's petition didn't just say Mom couldn't manage money. It said I couldn't be trusted. It described me as unreachable, hostile, and potentially influenced by a strange son. Caleb wasn't just missing. He was weaponized. So I did what Mark never expected from me. I looked things up. Property records were public. I typed our old address. The house Mom swore would be yours kids someday. A list of filings loaded, neat and boring, until one dated April 18th, 2025 punched through the screen. Quit claim deed. Grantor, Elaine Whitman, by guardian Mark R. Whitman. Grantee, Whitman Family Holdings, LLC. I'd never heard of Whitman Family Holdings, but the registered address was Mark's office. I paid the fee and opened the PDF. There was Mom's signature again, close, but wrong, and the same notary stamp I'd started to hate. Whitman Real Estate. "You moved the house," I whispered. "You moved everything." Back in the guardianship file, I found the justification section meant to convince a judge Mark was the safe choice. It cited a history of domestic volatility and referenced an incident report from June 2017, implying Caleb assaulted Mark. The report number was printed like a magic spell, digits meant to stop questions. I called the non-emergency line and read the number out loud. The officer paused. "Ma'am," he said, "that doesn't match our format." My stomach dropped. "So it's not real?" "I can't find it," he said. "It may not exist." When I hung up, the room felt thinner, like the walls had moved back. This wasn't Mark handling things after Mom got sick. This was Mark building a paper world where he was the hero and everyone else was either dangerous or gone. I went back to the envelope from box 114 and pulled out the last item, a flash drive taped to a sticky note. The sticky note read, "Play this first," and my hands started shaking. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop and stared at the screen until it felt like staring back. One file sat alone, 061420117_audio. M4A. I clicked play. At first it was muffled, fabric rustle, a door closing. Then Mark's private voice, low and close, the one he never used in public. "You want to be a man?" Mark said. "Then take the fall like one." Caleb's voice, younger, shaking. "You put your hands on her." Mom, small, exhausted. "Please." Mark laughed once. "Nobody's going to believe you," he said. "Not with your temper. You raise your voice and I call it in." Paper slid across a surface. "Sign the statement," Mark said. "Say you shoved me. Say you took the cash. Then you leave tonight and you don't come back." Caleb's breathing went ragged. "If I don't." Mark's tone turned soft. "Then I tell the judge you're violent," he said. "And your mother chooses peace because she has to live here." Mom tried to speak. "Mark, Elaine," he snapped, and she went silent so fast it made my skin crawl. The recording ended with Caleb saying, very quietly, "Mia doesn't know." I sat there with my hand over my mouth, tasting bile. Mark hadn't been protecting Mom from Caleb. He'd been protecting himself from Caleb. My official story wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a script. By morning I was at a diner off Route 9, sliding into a booth across from Caleb. He looked older than yesterday, like confession had weight. I set the flash drive on the table. "I heard it," I said. Caleb let out a shaky breath. "Okay," he whispered. "Then you know why I left." "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "Because he told me you'd hate me," Caleb said. "And the second I pushed back, he had cops at my job. He made sure I couldn't stay without dragging you down too." If I exposed this, Mark's world would implode. Church, business, friends. And in the rubble, he'd blame Caleb, and he'd blame me for siding with him. Caleb leaned forward. "I don't want your money," he said. "I want him to admit what he did. I want the guardianship voided. I want my name out of his mouth." My throat tightened. "And if he won't?" Caleb didn't blink. "Then we make him say it somewhere he can't control." Mark didn't wait long. 2 days after the funeral, I came home to a manila envelope taped to my apartment door. No stamp. Just my apartment number in Mark's neat handwriting, like he owned the hallway. Inside was a draft family settlement agreement. It offered me a small inheritance stipend if I agreed not to contest anything: guardianship, life insurance, property transfer. At the bottom was a blank signature line. My phone rang as soon as I finished reading. "Mark." "Mia," he said gently, like we were about to discuss groceries. "I'm worried about you." "About me?" I repeated. "About what Caleb is doing to you," Mark corrected. "He's manipulating you. He's always been good at making people feel responsible for his mess." "You filed for guardianship," I said. "You listed me as location unknown." "Your mother asked me to handle it," he replied. "She didn't want conflict." "She was nonverbal," I snapped. "How did she ask?" A beat of silence. Then, "Watch your tone." There it was, the private Mark, the one from the recording. "I have proof," I said. Mark's voice stayed calm. "Illegal recordings don't help you," he said. "They make you look unstable. Like your brother." My stomach dropped because I hadn't told him about the flash drive. I hadn't told anyone but Caleb and Denise. "How do you know?" I whispered. "I know what happens around my family," Mark said softly. "I know you met him at that diner on Route 9. Booth by the window." Cold swept over me. He'd followed me. Or someone did. "Sign the agreement," he continued, voice warming again. "Let your mother rest. Caleb will disappear again, and you'll still have a family." For a second, I pictured the easy version of my life. Holidays without tension, church people smiling, nobody whispering my name. My pen hovered. Then there was a knock. Aunt Denise stood in the hallway, holding her phone up like a shield. Her eyes were dry and furious. "Don't sign," she said, loud enough for Mark to hear. "And don't lie to her again." Mark's voice went razor thin. "Denise, this doesn't concern you." Denise didn't flinch. "You want to talk about concerns?" she said. "Let's talk about the safe behind your Deacon of the Year plaque." Because I didn't even know a safe existed behind that plaque. Denise shut my apartment door like she was closing a chapter. "The safe," she said. "Behind the Deacon of the Year plaque. That's where he keeps originals." I stared at her. "How do you know that?" "Because I've watched him pull papers out of it and win," she said. "Your mom begged me not to make it worse." I listened. Caleb arrived, and Denise repeated it. Caleb's jaw flexed. "Same playbook," he muttered. "Copies for show, originals for leverage." Denise lifted her phone. "Then we force daylight," she said. "A lawyer. A clock on the wall. Witnesses." I called Attorney Patel's firm and requested a probate consultation, saying I had concerns about guardianship notice and asset transfers. They gave me Friday at 2 p.m. Mark confirmed the appointment like he was granting me a privilege. "Good," he said. "A professional will settle you down." He assumed I'd come alone. Friday, I walked into Patel's office with Denise and Caleb. My stomach did that falling elevator thing, but I kept my shoulders squared. Attorney Patel greeted us with calm eyes. "Ms. Harris," she said. "And these are—" "My aunt," I said, "and my brother." Mark arrived late, as if to prove he could. When he saw Caleb, his expression cooled, not shocked, prepared. "This is inappropriate," Mark said. "This is a private matter." Attorney Patel didn't budge. "If Ms. Harris wants him present, he may be present," she replied. "Let's start with notice." She asked one simple question. "Ms. Harris, were you served for the guardianship hearing?" "No," I said, "but the file says I was." I slid the copies across. Patel read, then stopped at the affidavit of service. "Signed by Mia," she murmured. "Notarized at Whitman Real Estate." Mark's smile tightened. We followed procedure. Attorney Patel's pen tapped once. "Do you have the original affidavit?" she asked. "Wet signature." Mark's eyes flicked, brief, involuntary, like he'd pictured the safe behind that plaque. "I'll retrieve it," he said. "Please do," Patel replied. "Because if this is forged, we're discussing fraud." Mark's smile finally cracked. "Who told you about that safe, Mia, exactly?" We reconvened Monday. Mark arrived with a slim lockbox and the same navy suit, like the outfit could make the documents behave. He set the box on the table with both hands. "Originals," he said, smiling. Attorney Patel opened it with careful calm and pulled out the affidavit of service. "Ms. Harris," she said to me, "please sign your name on this line." My fingers shook as I signed on her legal pad. Patel held my fresh signature beside the affidavit. The loops didn't match. The slant didn't match. Even the pressure looked different, like one was written by a hand and the other by a fear. This signature appears traced, Patel said, tone flat. And the notary commission number does not correspond to the stamp used. Mark's smile stiffened. That's ridiculous. Patel flipped the page. This notary commission expired in 2023, she added. Your filing is 2025. Denise made a choking sound. Caleb's hands clenched under the table. Mark leaned back, eyes narrowing. You think I forged documents? He asked, like the idea was offensive. I think someone filed false service and false notarization, Patel replied. And I'm obligated to address it. To who? Mark snapped. To the court, Patel said. Possibly to the notary division. Possibly law enforcement. The room went quiet in a way that made my ears ring. Mark's gaze swung to me, and suddenly I was 17 again, waiting to see if I'd passed his invisible test. You're really going to do this? He asked softly. After everything I did for you? You lied, I said. The word tasted like metal. Mark's face sharpened. Your mother wanted peace, he hissed. She wanted you safe from him. Caleb finally spoke. Don't say her name like you own it. Mark snapped the lockbox open again and slapped down another document, hard enough to make Patel's pen jump. Fine, Mark said. Let's talk about truth. Let's talk about 2017. A bank statement. Highlighted. Where do you think Caleb's savings came from? He demanded. Why do you think he could just disappear? I leaned forward, heart hammering, and read the highlighted line twice. The highlighted deposit showed Mom's account number and Caleb's name beside it. Mark's bank statement hit me like a slap because it was exactly the kind of proof he'd always used on me. A highlighted line. A neat narrative. Caleb equals thief. Caleb didn't flinch. He slid his own account history across the table from the same week in 2017. The deposit was there, same amount, same date. Under a memo, it said, Elaine W. Transfer. My mother didn't do that, Caleb said quietly. He did. He had her card. He was building a story. Attorney Patel looked between the pages, then at Mark. Mr. Whitman, she said, this is not exculpatory. It's incriminating. Mark stood so fast his chair screeched. You're all insane, he snapped. You're going to ruin her memory. Denise rose too. You ruined her life, she said, voice shaking. Patel ended the meeting and told us she would file a petition to vacate the guardianship, request an injunction against further transfers, and notify the court about possible fraudulent notarization. Mark left without looking at me. Within days, the fallout started moving like a storm front. Church friends texted me verses about honor. Mark's supporters posted vague comments about family betrayal and a troubled stepson. At work, my supervisor asked if I could keep personal issues separate, and I started eating lunch in my car. Then came the official calls. A court notice arrived with a hearing date stamped in bold. A state investigator called about the notary commission number. A detective left a voicemail asking me to confirm timeline and access regarding my mother's accounts. Mark didn't contact me directly anymore. He sent messages through other people, like missiles with friendly signatures. Mark says you're being manipulated. Mark wants to meet alone. Caleb stayed close, but careful, like he didn't trust his own presence not to explode things. I never wanted you to carry it, he said one night, staring at his hands. I already carried it, I whispered. Denise warned, he'll try something. I told myself Mark wouldn't be stupid. He was too calculated. Then, Friday at 9:47 p.m, my phone rang. It wasn't Mark's name. It was Mom's. My screen lit up with Mom's contact photo, and I answered. The hearing landed on a rainy Tuesday. Mark sat in his navy suit, jaw tight. Denise sat beside me. Caleb sat behind me, hands clasped so hard his knuckles went pale. Attorney Patel laid out the facts without drama. Improper notice, forged service, expired notary commission, asset transfers executed under guardianship authority. She didn't call Mark a monster. She just kept showing the judge paper that didn't match itself. Mark tried his public voice. Your Honor, my wife was ill, he said. I protected her. The judge asked, simple and deadly. Mr. Whitman, why does this affidavit say your stepdaughter was served when she was not? Mark hesitated. I'd never seen him hesitate in front of power. I believe she was served, he said. And the notary stamp that expired in 2023, the judge pressed. Administrative error, Mark muttered. The judge didn't blink. The guardianship is vacated, he said. You will provide a full accounting of assets and transfers within 30 days. Referral for review will be made. My breath left me in a shaky exhale. Behind me, I felt Caleb's shoulders drop like he'd been holding his life in his teeth. Outside, Mark turned to me, eyes bright with rage. "You did this," he said through his smile. For the first time in my life, I didn't flinch. "Do not contact me directly," I said. "Everything goes through counsel." He looked around, saw strangers nearby, and walked away. Healing didn't look like a movie moment after that. It looked like work. Caleb and I started small. Coffee on Sundays, no big promises. I admitted I'd repeated Mark's story like scripture. Caleb admitted he believed Mark when he said I'd hate him. Denise helped me find a therapist who didn't treat family unity like a religion. I blocked the guilt texts. I wrote my boundaries down. No private meetings, no secret calls, no apologizing for asking questions. A week later, Patel asked me to sign updated filings. When I sat down, she slid a small envelope across the desk instead of paperwork. "It was produced in Discovery," she said, "marked as personal." Attorney Patel slid a sealed envelope toward me, and it had Mom's handwriting. I didn't open the envelope in the parking lot. I drove to the cemetery. Caleb was already there, standing a few feet from Mom's headstone, hands in his pockets like he didn't know what else to do with them. Denise stayed by the car, giving us privacy. Mom's handwriting was unmistakable, rounded and careful, the same hand that wrote, "Love you," on every card. The letter was dated March 5th, 2025. "Mia, if you ever read this, it means I didn't get to say it out loud. I'm sorry for the ways I stayed quiet to keep peace. I thought silence would protect you, but it only fed him." She wrote that Mark prepared documents and pushed them in front of her when she was weak. She wrote that he told her Caleb would come back and take everything, that I'd fall apart, that this was for your safety. She wrote that she was scared of his temper and ashamed of how long she'd accepted it. Then came the sentence that made my hands go numb. Caleb didn't steal. Mark made it look that way. I looked up. Caleb's jaw was clenched like he was holding his own bones together. "I didn't want her to choose me," he whispered. "I wanted her to choose herself." "I know," I said, and it was the first time I'd said it without a question mark. The mess didn't end neatly. Mark fought and delayed. Some people still treat me like I'm the one who broke the family. But the guardianship is gone, and the court ordered an accounting. What reshaped us wasn't just evidence. It was learning we're allowed to demand it. If someone keeps saying, "Don't ask," and "Don't embarrass us," save everything, get copies, write down dates, and bring a third party into the room. Fog is where control lives. Caleb and I aren't magically healed. We're building something new. Coffee on Sundays, therapy appointments, honest boundaries. Last week he showed up with a toolbox and fixed my leaky sink, and for a few minutes, the past didn't own the room.